Hi everybody, welcome to lesson 116. We are here at lesson 116, which is about compound interest. So this is more sort of, for those of you who love asking, when will I use this in real life? This is more of that real life math that we've all heard so much about and that we all love. So compound interest is really important because it's how you figure out how much money you would have based on the amount you've invested. So basically what happens when you deposit money in a bank, sometimes the bank uses a portion of that money to make loans and investments to earn money for the bank. So banks will offer to pay interest on the amount of money you deposited. So interest is a percentage of the money you deposited. So we're going to look at two examples in a second. I'm sure you've heard the term interest before. All right. And the original amount that you deposited is called the principal amount. So whatever you start out with, and if you look at the bottom of your screen here, you'll see we're going to talk about a principal amount of $100. So say we invested $100 or deposited $100 in the bank. We're going to look at interest on that in a second. So simple interest is interest paid only on the principal amount. So let's look at simple interest first. Say that we're getting 3% simple interest on this bank account. So what is 3% of 100? It would be, man, I'm having another malfunction with my little writing pen here. Let's see. Okay, great. My apologies for the delay. If you wanted to get 3% of $100, that would be $3 in your first year. So let's just say year one. Now, simple interest says that you're still in year two. You're only looking at the original amount deposited. So 3% of that amount again is another $3. 3% the next year is another year $3. So after 3 years, you've accrued $9 of interest. So now your balance in your bank account is $109. Okay. What compound interest does, however, is it will not only find interest on your principal, but on the interest you begin to earn as well. So it's actually a more favorable situation for you to get interest, compound interest. So let's look at this example. So in our first year, 3% of our original amount is still $3 because that's our original amount. But now our balance is $103. So in the second year, what you're going to do is you're going to find 3% of $103. So that would be $3.09. So you would add that. That would be your second year's worth of interest. So now we have $106.09. For our third year, you would find 3% of $106.09, and that would be $3.18. So as you see, this is more favorable. I'm sorry, I ran out of room. You'd end up with more money in the long run if you had compound interest. Now, in this example, sure, it's only 27-cent difference, but say you were dealing with larger numbers, it would be a larger amount of interest. Okay, so basically when we do a compound interest, what you're going to do is multiply the principal amount by the percent. So in this case, we did, let's look at our first year amount of money. We had $103. To find 3% of that, we just multiplied by what 3% would be as a decimal. Okay, that's how you figure that out. That's how we got $3.09, which we just added to this to get our second year's amount of money and our third year amount of money. So let's look at an example because I'm sure that's a little confusing. So Mrs. Vasquez opened a $2,000 retirement account that has a growth rate at 10% a year. That's great for 3 years. What is the current value of her account? So what we're going to do is we're going to take the principal amount of money, $2,000. We're going to multiply that by 10%. So remember, 10% as a fraction is just 0.1 or 0.10 if you really wanted to write it like that. So just to recall, 10%, to write it as a decimal, the decimal place is here, you just move it back over 2 spaces. So it's 0.1 or 0.10 if you prefer to think of it that way. So 2,000 times 0.1 or 1/10 is going to be $200. So now our new total after the first year is $2,000, $2,200. Okay, so that's year one. Great. We need to know what happens after 3 years. So let's take our new amount, $2,200, multiply by that 10% interest rate. Okay, so now the amount of money she's earning her second year is $220. So we'll add that $220 to the amount she had. So we have $2,420. That's how much she has after her second year. For her third year, take that new amount, $2,420, multiply by the interest rate, which is 10% or 0.1, and she will now add $242. So add that to the amount of money she started with in the year. So after 3 years, she has $2,662. Okay, that's how much money she'll have after 3 years. Now, one thing I want to call to your memory, do you remember when we would look at the amount of money someone was going to pay for something and say, she's going to spend $10 on that shirt, but the sales tax is 6%. How much will she end up paying on that shirt? So we would say, let's take that principal amount, let's multiply it by the sales tax. Okay, and then after that, we'll add that back to the original amount. Do you guys remember doing that? Hopefully you do. Okay, so for $10, she would only have to pay 6 cents. So her final cost, I guess, I don't know, I'm getting ahead of myself. It would end up like this. So we would add that to the original amount. So her final payment wouldn't be $10.06. 60 cents. I knew something felt wrong. Oh, good thing you guys are so patient. I was like, that would only be if it was $1. So 60 cents, $10.60. But remember I said, if you don't want to do that extra step of adding it back to the original, you could multiply by 1.06. Then all at once, you would get to your final price, $10.60, in one step of multiplication. Similarly here, with compound interest, you can take your original amount. So let's say we're looking at Mrs. Vasquez's investment of $2,000. Instead of just multiplying by 0.1, we could multiply by 1.1, and it would have gotten us right to the total, $2,200. Now, in the first step, that's not so hard, but once you get to your second steps, it would be a lot more helpful to multiply by 1.1. $2,200 multiplied by 1.1. So you wouldn't have to do the multiplication and the addition. All at once, you would get to your second answer, $2,420. Then take that amount and multiply by your interest. So when the basics here that I'm trying to get at is whenever you're multiplying by your interest, just put a 1 before the decimal. So 1.6%, if it was 1 and 10%, if it was 70% interest. So you would just put a 1 before the decimal, and that will save you some time. So if you look at page 608, you'll see that they sort of lay out what buttons to press on a calculator to do this. So take a moment to look at that. They show you basically, you would press the buttons for 2,000 times 1.1 equals, and then in your calculator, that value stays in your calculator. So instead of typing it all out again, you can just hit times 1.1 equal, times 1.1 equal. So you don't have to keep retyping things. Okay. So I hope you liked that lesson. I feel like that wasn't a lot of help, but let's do one more. I'll just make one up. Miss O has $100 deposited in a bank account, and let's say I get 20% interest, which would be really lovely. That's a lot. 20% interest. How much will I have? Will she have? Let's pretend it's a different Miss O. After 5 years. So this is a time, one of those rare moments where you get to use a calculator. So what you could do is you could do $100 times, now how would we write 20% as a decimal? It would be, remember you move your decimal over twice, it would be 0.2 or 0.20 if you prefer. And to make it fast, we'll just put a 1 in front of it. So 100 times 1.20 is going to tell you how much money I'm going to have after 1 year. So you can, of course, do that math because you guys know how to multiply with decimals. Or practice using your calculator. How much money would I have after 1 year? $120. Now, in your calculator, just leave that answer there and multiply by 1.2 or 1.20 again. After 2 years, I'd have $144. So just hit times 1.2. After 3 years, I would have $172.80. Okay, so for our 4th year, let's multiply by 1.2 again. After 4 years, I'll write it up here, I'd have $207.36. Multiply by 1.20 again. That's a nice thing. Even your phone calculators will keep the answer in there for you. So now it says 832. I don't know if I just had a keystroke error, but obviously with money, we would round to the hundredths place. So we would say after 5 years, I would have $248.83. And that's a great investment. So if you guys ever find a place that will give you 20% interest, jump on it because that's wonderful. So I hope that made sense for you. I will leave it here. If you have any questions, let me know. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, but reach out to me if you have any questions.